There is a plant that produces something almost impossible. Not sugar, not artificial sweetener, not a processed syrup made in factories, but something golden, thick, and naturally sweet, almost identical to honey. And here's the part that doesn't make sense. It does all of this without a single bee. No hives, no stings, no extraction machines, no beekeeper. Just a quiet plant growing silently in ordinary soil. For thousands of years, it has been producing this sweetness, while the world kept believing that honey only comes from bees. But what if that belief is incomplete? What if nature created another way? A way that doesn't require effort, doesn't require risk, and doesn't require industry. One plant can produce more usable sweetness than multiple beehives combined. And yet, almost nobody talks about it. No advertisements, no big companies promoting it, no shelves full of it in supermarkets. Because if people truly understood this plant, it would change how sweetness is produced forever. So the question is not, does it exist? The question is, why haven't you heard of it? Today, we open the file on the plant that produces honey without bees. And once you see it, you won't look at honey the same way again. Long before modern science, before laboratories, before industries, there were people who already knew the truth. In the mountains of South Africa, hidden within a wild ecosystem called fynbos, a simple bush was quietly changing everything. The indigenous Khoisan people discovered it thousands of years ago, not through research papers, but through observation. They crushed its leaves and smelled sweetness. They brewed its stems and tasted something familiar, not just sweet, but unmistakably like honey. No bees involved, no hives nearby, just a plant producing what felt impossible. So they built traditions around it. They harvested it from the mountains, dried it, stored it, and used it as their natural sweetener. For generations, this knowledge was protected, lowered tone, passed down quietly, family to family. The best locations kept secret. The perfect harvest time carefully remembered, because they understood something powerful. This plant replaced the need for bees. Then everything changed. Tone shift slightly serious. In the 17th century, European colonizers arrived, and with them, they brought bees. Beekeeping became the new system, structured, controlled, commercial, and slowly, the plant was pushed aside, not because it stopped working, but because it didn't fit the new system. The knowledge wasn't erased, it was ignored. While the world moved towards honey production, factories, and global trade, this bush stayed where it always was, growing, producing sweetness, waiting for someone to notice again. And now, you are. At first, this sounds like a myth. A plant producing honey without bees? But when scientists finally looked closer, they found something unexpected. This wasn't an illusion. It was chemistry. Inside this plant exists a complex mix of natural compounds, sugars, polyphenols, and rare plant molecules that interact directly with human taste receptors, not just creating sweetness, but recreating the exact profile we associate with honey. Researchers studying this plant identified dozens of active compounds. Not one dominant ingredient, but a network of natural chemistry working together. That's why it doesn't taste artificial. That's why it feels real. Because it is. When processed correctly, the plant produces a thick golden syrup with sweetness levels comparable to commercial honey. And here's what makes it even more interesting. The sweetness doesn't break down. Heat doesn't destroy it. Time doesn't weaken it. Just like real honey, it stays stable for months, even years. But that's not all. In some studies, this plant showed higher antioxidant levels than common honey varieties, meaning it doesn't just replace sweetness, it may actually improve it. And unlike bee honey, it contains no pollen, no bee proteins, no compounds that trigger common allergies. For some people, this becomes the only honey-like sweetener they can safely consume. So now the question changes. It's no longer, is this real? The real question is, if the science confirms it, if the plant works, if it's been known for thousands of years, then why is it still hidden? Because the answer has nothing to do with science and everything to do with economics. Let's talk numbers, because numbers don't lie. A single beehive costs money to set up. Equipment, protective gear, maintenance. Even before the first drop of honey is produced, you're already invested. Hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars. And even then, nothing is guaranteed. Bees get sick, colonies collapse, weather changes everything. Now, compare that to one single plant. A honey-producing bush that costs less than a basic tool. No equipment, no protective suits, no risk. You plant it, and it grows. That's it. A healthy beehive might produce around 50 to 60 pounds of honey per year, under ideal conditions. But this plant can produce an equivalent amount of usable sweetness from simple harvests, year after year, with almost zero maintenance. So now, think about this. If anyone can grow their own honey at home, what happens to the industry? A global market worth billions, built on one belief, that you need bees. And suddenly, that belief is no longer true. This isn't just a plant, it's a disruption, because it removes dependency. No suppliers, no middlemen, no pricing control. Just you and a plant producing sweetness. So what does the industry do? Do they promote it? Do they educate people? No. They stay silent. No marketing, no awareness campaigns, no shelf space in stores. Because the biggest threat is not competition, it's independence. And a single plant in your backyard is enough to create it. Now here's the part that changes everything. Because this is not just information. It's opportunity. This plant can actually be grown at home, in a garden, on a small plot, even in containers. It doesn't demand perfect soil. It doesn't require constant attention. In fact, it prefers simplicity. Give it space. Give it sunlight. Give it time. And it will grow. Over time, it becomes stronger, more productive, until one day you realize you don't need to buy sweetness anymore. You can create it from your own land. The process is simple. Harvest the plant, dry it, process it, and extract the syrup. That's it. No machines, no industrial setup, just knowledge. Knowledge that existed long before modern systems and is still available today. And now, you understand something important. This was never just about honey. It's about control. Who controls your food, your resources, your choices? And this plant represents something bigger. Freedom. Not from work, but from dependency. Because once you realize you can produce something yourself, you stop needing permission to access it. And that changes everything. So the question is no longer, what is this plant? The question is, what will you do with this knowledge? Will it remain just information? Or will you take the next step? Because the plant is already there. The knowledge is already available. And the opportunity is already in your hands. This is the moment to rethink what you were told, to question what you assumed, and to explore what was always possible. If this changed the way you see the world, subscribe and stay with us, because this is just the beginning, and there's much more still hidden, waiting to be uncovered.